Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to show you guys how to change the transmission fluid on an E70 X5. It actually has the same transmission that's in my 335i. It's a 6HP26, I believe. It's a ZF 6-speed transmission, and I bought a kit to change out the seals inside the transmission and externally, as well as I got 7 liters of fluid. I've had this car for more than 5 years actually, and I haven't done the service. And as far as I was told, it was done before I got it. But the reason I'm getting to it now is my transmission's actually leaking at the drain plug, and it made a mess under the car. So now's a better time than I need to just get that replaced for maintenance regardless. So I'll show you what I've bought. Here's what I purchased. I bought it on eBay. It's a new actual transmission pan. I got the seals for the Mechatronic unit at the back side. I bought these from this company here. So got that on eBay, and I bought this BAPMEC complete kit. It comes with your Mechatronic sleeve or the valve body sleeve. They can leak from there externally. Comes with a bridge seal adapter. These seals over time can flatten out. So comes with that. I bought these separately, but it's a good idea to replace these because they do flatten out over time. And the kit comes with new hardware and everything you need to change out the actual pan. Comes with the O-rings pre-installed, magnets, etc. So this whole kit was 65 bucks with these seals. These seals are 25 bucks, and I'll show you the fluid I bought. This is the fluid I got. Pentosin ATF1. I actually have 2 liters extra of this, so I have a total of 7 liters. And since it's normally 5 to 6 liters when you're just doing a drain and fill, but on my car it was leaking a bit, so I wanted to get a little bit extra. Plus, I actually will be dropping the valve body or the Mechatronic unit, so that could contribute to about another liter. So 7 liters hopefully is enough. This stuff's really expensive. This one bottle was $76 for 5 liters, but it's what's recommended for this car and what you can get at your local auto parts store. So I'm going to jack up all 4 corners of the car and try to get it level, so that we'll have working room underneath the vehicle, as well as when it's time to fill, the car's level and I can put the appropriate amount of fluid in. So let's get it jacked up. I actually bought a 3-ton jack from Harbor Freight because it has appropriate lifting height. I had an aluminum jack, still have it actually, that wouldn't raise this car high enough and wasn't very convenient, so I'll let you know what I think of this. Alright, so I have the car jacked up and sitting level, and take a look at what the issue was. As you can see, I got a huge puddle. Not a huge one, but, and it's leaking from there. It actually is dripping onto that metal or aluminum tray there, and then it comes to the back and drips right there. So it's not a major leak, but it's enough that I gotta address it. So I'm gonna get that cleaned up. I got a metal pan here for 10 bucks from my auto parts store that will catch all the excess drips that fall outside of the drain pan. So first I'll clean that up, and then we'll get my creeper, go underneath, remove that splash shield. Alright, so we're cleaned up. Now there's a number of 8mm bolts around this tray here. 2 at the back, and I think 3 at the front. And I believe the backs are slotted, so you don't have to release them all the way. I'm going to remove those now. So you do have to actually remove these to drop it, but it'll help hold it in place if you just leave them loose. Got some cleanup to do again, but it was leaking from here. It is leaking from the drain bolt. As you can see here, my drain plug is leaking. I guess that's the best thing that could be wrong with it, all things considered. Now, before you go any further, the first thing you need to do is come over to the passenger side of the transmission, and you're going to want to release the fill plug. If this thing's seized up, you're not going to be able to refill fluid once you drain, and then your car will be stuck. So get yourself an 8mm Allen. There's pretty good access to it on this side. And we're just going to whack this with a hammer a couple times just to make sure it will free up. If that doesn't work, then you got to get you may want to use a socket. So since that was pretty tight and there's good clear access here, I can use a 8mm Allen key on a 3/8 drive. It's going to be a lot more stiff and more likely to break free. There you go. So I was able to crack that free. Now we want to come around, set up our pan, let this drain out. This is a 10mm. This is a 10mm Allen now for the drain. So we got to get our drain pan set up. Set up with the drain pan. We got a 10mm Allen key on the 3/8 drive right now. I'm gonna put that in there. I'm just holding the drain plug here in case it would overfill my pan, but it looks like it's about to finish. There's lots of room under this car and clear access to the transmission, so it should be an easy job. So I'll let that finish off, and then I'll replace the cap, and then we'll go after the perimeter bolts for the pan. Okay, that's now at a drip, so I'm going to replace the drain plug. So I'm going to drain out this drain pan now. I'll come back and we'll go after these bolts. They should be T40s. I emptied out my drain pan and it filled up a 5-liter jug, so about 5 liters came out. Now I want to go after all these perimeter bolts for the pan. They are T40s. So I'm going to get all these loosened up off camera, and I'll come back when I'm ready to lower the pan. We're down to just 4 bolts in the corners now, and the pan's going to start to drop. So you're going to want to get the ones near the front and have a drain pan ready, because it's going to want to drip some more from the front, and then you can kind of hang it on an angle just in case we didn't get everything out of it. So that's one. There we go. So it looks like it's pretty empty actually, luckily, so that's not so bad. So on this car, it kind of hangs on this little ledge here, and you can kind of maneuver it around. I left just the one bolt back here in, but that's kind of nice. You can control the fluid. So I'm letting it drain into the pan now. Just hanging on that one bolt down there. And as you can see, it's just draining into my pan. So this helped catch it actually. If I wasn't ready, I wouldn't have realized that it would just fall right on here, and if that wasn't there, it probably would have went and made a huge mess. So keep this bolt in the corner, let it hang on an angle like that, and drain out the last of the fluid out of the pan. And then the whole Mechatronic unit is going to want to drip slowly. You can get ready with a cloth to wipe things up, or you just have your drain pan, like this pan I bought, ready. It'll catch, it's got enough area that it will catch all the little drips. You're going to get a ton of them as you're working. It's not a bad idea to just let this stay like this, let the Mechatronic unit drip out onto the actual pan and then down into here. Maybe come back after 20 minutes of this, and you'll limit the mess that you're going to make. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, it's been about 20 minutes or so, and the dripping has stopped. Got some wipes ready just in case. Now I want to lower this pan down. Alright. You see that the O-ring came off with the tube? That's what we want. I can set that aside. We're not using that again. Make sure you get some low lint cloth if you're going to be wiping things down. Alright, so we're good there. Now, what we want to do, I'm ready to remove this drain pan because I don't expect any major fluid to come down anymore. Now what we want to do is look up here. You can see right there. This is the Mechatronic sleeve. We want to rotate this. As you can see, I'm lifting up on it. We want to rotate that up so we can get the harness off. Probably have to get two hands on that, but you can see where I'm working right there. There's clear access to it. And then we're going to pull down on this tab to release the sleeve. But first we got to get that harness off. It's on there pretty good, so I may have to use a pry bar. Yeah, so I got it started. As you can see, I got it started just by doing this. Should be able to get the rest by hand now. See? Stops at a point, can't go any further than that. So let's try removing this. My sleeve wasn't leaking actually, but they eventually do. So there's the harness removed. So now we're going to come over here, and there's a little tab you got to push in to lower that, and then this can come out. Again, we'll probably need our pry bar. You don't have to worry because you're not going to reuse this piece, so if it chips a bit, it's not a big deal. There we go. Comes out just like that. So it wasn't too bad. So we can set that aside. We're going to be replacing that. Now the rest of our work is going to be focused in on the actual Mechatronic unit itself. Now what we got to look for are the larger bolts. They should be T40s, the same as the actual drain pan bolts. Yeah, like this. So you have rounded off looking bolts. You don't want to touch those should be D27s. You just want these ones, the ones that look flat, that are T40. That's going to allow you to drop the whole Mechatronic unit itself. And you're not going to be disassembling the valve body if you go after just these guys here, the big ones. So I think there's 12 of them total. It's kind of hard to do one-handed here, but if you try to put it on the wrong one, it's not going to fit, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Once you crack it free, you'll be able to get it by hand, because obviously there's no corrosion here. And I believe they're all the same length. Yep, so far they're the same. Let me just double check that. As you can see, same. So far I've removed 6. We got 8 now. Now I think we gotta pay special attention to this harness on the side. So I'm gonna go over to that side and we'll see what's up with that to make sure we don't damage anything. We're over on the driver's side now, and I'm gonna continue on. You really start to drip when you get this one back here. I should probably get my pan back in place. These two at the front are shorter. Hopefully you can see that. So it's starting to move now. Feels stiff over here. I'm probably missing a bolt that I'm not seeing. I'm going to look for it. Yeah, there's one in the corner here. So there's 3 up at the front. Things really start to drop. I'm going to move this bolt here over here just for more control, because that's going to be my final bolt, I believe. Alright, I was able to lower the Mechatronic unit down. I'm going to let that drain out. That's why you're going to lose an extra liter or so when you drop the Mechatronic unit, because that normally doesn't come down. This is the bridge seal that one of the reasons I lowered the actual Mechatronic unit, because I want to get this out. Like so. These seals flatten out, and then you can lose shifting quality. So that's down. And then we're going to go after these 4 seals. Be careful not to introduce dirt or debris into the transmission. This is the inside of your transmission. You can see the actual gears, clutch packs, etc. Very serviceable on this car though. I'm impressed with that. I'll let that drain out and I'll come back once that's done. It's been 20 minutes or so. Just getting a light drip now, so I'm going to put a small container in its place and we'll get cleaned up. And I'll show you the Mechatronic unit outside of the car. So here's our mess. Got my pan here. There's fluid sitting on the top of the Mechatronic unit, so I'm going to try to dump that into the actual drain pan and clean things up and get prepared for reassembly. So I'm going to lay out all the bolts, wipe up all this fluid, clean things up, and I'll show you when I'm ready for reassembly. Alright, I got my work area cleaned up, and I put all the old rags and everything in a bag. I'm going to put the old parts, including the Mechatronic sleeve, the bridge seal adapter, and the pan in the garbage. The reason you got to change these pans is the filter is integrated into the actual pan. So you can drain and fill if you'd like, but you know, in my case, it was leaking at the drain plug, and regardless, I would have changed it to change out the integrated filter. So, and one thing I want to show you guys is this bridge seal adapter, what happens to them over time. Eventually, the actual O-rings inside here flatten out, and you'll experience degraded shift quality because it can't maintain appropriate line pressure. If you look at these, they're relatively flattened out, but they're still functioning. I'll get the new one so we can compare. Here's the new one. And also these O-rings on the actual Mechatronic sleeve harden up and shrink over time, and then you can have seepage of the side of your transmission. That's why we're changing this. Here's a comparison of the new bridge seal. As you can see, there's plenty of height off the actual O-rings versus this. So that's why that's got to be changed. It actually could change the quality of your shifting. So that's going in the garbage. And the Mechatronic sleeve has the O-rings on it that in this case are flattened out as well. They probably would have started leaking pretty soon, so that's garbage. I'm going to bring the new parts over here and get ready to reinstall. First we got to remove those tubes in the transmission, which I'll show you. Next up is these actual tubes. Over time they flatten out, and they could affect shift quality as well. So be very careful when you pull these out. I have a pick tool that looks like that. I want to get it started from all angles. Two of them are the same length, two of them are different lengths. That kind of went flying, but it's fine, came out. Got that one. Thing is, you want to get this started and you don't want to go through it unless you're past the actual body. Otherwise you could put a score line in the actual housing part, which you don't want to do. I found that first one that went flying. So these two are the exact same length. These should be a bit longer. What I did was pull it down enough that I could poke through. Oh, that actually just ripped. I'm going to get some vice grips or needle nose to pull that the rest of the way out. I'll get this one started. Alright, I was able to use these vice grips. This one is a little longer, and I think the last one is the longest. Alright, and there's the longest one. So, gotta get it started with the pick and then use a pair of vice grips. So, it goes longest to shortest. I'm gonna bring those over now and we'll slide them in. I got the new seals. I'm gonna put the longest one in first. And they really shouldn't bottom out because they're new. And the whole point is, as they degrade over time, they get smushed in. So there you go, they're all in now, and they're level. Meaning they're all seated down. That's why you have to change them over time, because as they get compressed by the valve body, they shrink. And this is the condition they're in. So, that's why, and they get hard and shrunken down, and it can affect shift quality again. Next up is the bridge seal adapter, which clips into place. It's got a little notch right here on this side. so it will stay in place. So you basically just line things up and that's pretty much it. Just lightly holds itself in place. Just like so. So once you've done that, make sure it's all spick and span clean. We can reinstall the valve body. Alright, so I'm ready to lift up the Mechatronic unit now. I laid a cloth on my jack and I'm going to use it to raise up the actual unit so I can do it in a controlled manner. You gotta kind of guide things in yourself. Use feel. Make sure you're clear of things. Don't use a jack to pass by things that are problematic. Otherwise you can cause issues. Alright, so I made a bit of a dumb mistake. I have the pan dropped again because I made this mistake here. This is the actual gear indicator. It tells the car where the actual transmission is, and this piece here, right here, is supposed to be inside here, in this little groove here, if you can make that out. So this has to be back here. So when you're lining back up your valve body, you got to make sure that this is slid forward so that it will clear this. You know, kind of fell into position as expected. Kind of rocks back and forth because of the fresh seals. They have more resistance on them. Now I'm going to start torquing things down. Alright, so I'm following the manufacturer's spec here. It's 6 foot-pounds or 8 Newton meters. You're supposed to start with this one, number 1. This is just to seat the actual unit home. Go back and forth between this one and this one. This is number 4 in the torque sequence. This is number 1 in the torque sequence. So basically seat it. That compresses the bridge seal. This compresses those 4 seals, those tubes at the back, and lines things up. Bottomed out there. Bottomed out here now. Now I gotta refer to. So now we just want to hand tighten all these down now. So this is the first one we want to tighten to 5 foot-pounds. Is here. Number 2. Number 3 is here. This number 4. Number 5 over here. Next is number 6 right here. Number 7 right here. Number 8. Number 9 is over here. Number 10 is over here. Number 11 is here. 12 right here. And 13 here. So now, I think I got them all, but I'll double check. Yeah, they all seem good. So, I was actually over here on the last ones in case you couldn't see 11, 12, 13. So we're in good shape now. I'm going to get the Mechatronic sleeve and put that back in. Okay, I'm getting ready to install the Mechatronic sleeve. If you look through it, there's a notch, so it only goes in one way. So you got to watch out for that when you're reinstalling. So I got the sleeve back into position. I just kind of rotated it around until I felt it kind of fall into place. And now it just needs a push to seat itself home. But that's all it really takes. And then we got to push this back up, this little clip. So I got that sleeve pushed in. You just basically got to use your thumbs. First, that notch is actually straight down at a 90-degree angle. So it's basically straight down. You'll keep turning until you feel that notch clear, and then push it straight in. And then you got to kind of just brace yourself against the car and use your thumb to walk it into position. And you'll know you're in final position when you can push this up. You won't be able to push that up because it won't fall into the slot on the actual Mechatronic sleeve. So that's all it takes, basically. Use your thumbs. You shouldn't need any tools. I didn't use a pry bar or anything to insert that. Now we'll bring the connector back to place and get that put back into position. This connector here basically just falls into position. Once you get things lined up properly, you'll feel it kind of click as it's ready for you to pull down on this, and then you'll see it get pulled into position, and then it stops at a point that's considered locked. So that's that for the Mechatronic sleeve. Now I've ensured that the mating surface here is clean. I wipe that down so I can bring the oil pan into position. I just want to take a little bit of existing fluid and lubricate this O-ring for the actual pan. Just a little bit will do. You gotta get that O-ring in that channel up at the front before you'll be able to put any bolts in. That felt good though. Seems like it went in, no problem. Get a new bolt to hold things in position. Before we actually fill, we want to make sure this drain plug is tight. It may not be tight from the factory, so be prepared for that. So I'll get all these bolts in and I'll show you when I'm torquing things down. Alright, so I'm ready to torque down the oil pan bolts. You basically start from the middle, go crisscross all the way around. So we just take a point, this is going to be number 1, and then 2 across, 3, 4, 5, 6, just basically diagonally. The torque for this is 7.5 foot-pounds. So I have my torque wrench set to that. Basically you're gonna go around. This one. So I'm just going to finish this up basically. Got to go across front to back now and in a diagonal pattern, and we'll be ready for fill. And I'll also be checking that this is actually torqued down to 8 Newton meters after I'm done tightening these bolts, just to make sure that it's not going to leak. Alright, so we're all tightened up around the perimeter of the pan, and I did check that actual drain plug. It wasn't very tight. It's max 8 Newton meters. I didn't go all that way because I felt like that would be a little much, but I made sure that was good and snug, and we're ready to fill now. So I'm getting ready to fill up the transmission now. I'm just using a small container. I'm going to dump fluid in here and use this transfer pump to actually pump it into the transmission. It's got a long tube, makes things easy, and you can set this on the ground. So let's fill this up with some fluid first. It's a little over a liter. I gotta be ready with my drain pan because it's gonna start to drip out. I'm gonna remove this fill bolt. I have a drain pan ready underneath it, as you can see. I'll start pouring out until we have at least 4.5 or 5 liters in there. So bring the tube over, insert it. Can't go in very far actually. So I'm just going to keep at this until it's about to start to drip out, and I'll show you guys. So far I've put in about 4 liters, and I'm getting a bit of a drip. Actually I haven't even put in more than 3 liters or so, but I'm starting to get a drip. So I'm going to see if I get a steady stream with a few more pumps. Yeah, so that's enough to start the car. We're gonna have to fill up the valve body by letting it warm up and going through the gears. I'm just gonna put this finger tight for now. Alright, so now we're ready to go start the car, go through the gears, fill up the valve body, and get the engine up to operating temperature. We're specifically trying to get the transmission up to operating temperature, or fill temperature, which is between 30 and 50 degrees Celsius. Alright, so enough fluid is in there now to start the car. So we're going to want to put it into drive and count for about 10 seconds or so. Then we're going to want to move it over into manual mode and drop it down into M1. Count for about 10 seconds or so. And then we're going to go into M2 and feel the car shifting into that gear. Let it fill up with enough fluid. And then hit M3, actually hit M3 for a sec. It's going to drop back down in M2, but just that momentary engagement helps fill it up. Then we're going to go into reverse. Turn that off because it's kind of annoying. Count for about 10 seconds or so. And then we'll put the car in park and let it warm up. What we want to do is monitor transmission temperature to make sure it's somewhere between 30 and 50 degrees Celsius before we do a final top up and fill. So I'm going to verify that via my laptop. I'm going to use IMPA to go into the transmission to check the actual temperature. So let's do that now. So I have my laptop loaded up with IMPA. I'll link to a thread on how to set this up on your own laptop if you don't have this. Or you could just get one of those laser pointers and just actually check the pan temperature to make sure that you're somewhere between 30 and 50 degrees Celsius. But this is an easy way to do it. I'm going to go into E70 transmission. So I'm using IMPA here, and I was hoping that I'd be able to check the transmission temperature via IMPA and going into the actual transmission module. I did that on my E90, but on this car I wasn't able to pull up that data. So what we want to verify is that we're up to operating temperature. The transmission should be somewhere between 30 and 50 degrees Celsius before you do a final fill. And I need to verify that. I could just get one of those laser pointers and actually go to the body of the transmission pan and see if that's approximately 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. Or what I'm doing here is I'm just making sure that coolant is up to operating temperature, and therefore transmission temp should be warm enough that I can do a final fill. So that's my way of verifying. But what I'd recommend for you guys is get one of those little laser temperature pointers, shoot it at the pan, make sure you're at least 30 degrees Celsius. So I'm ready for my final fill now. Alright, now that we see fluid trickling out, we're filled up, car's warm, we're ready to replace this, and we're done. Alright, let's give this a final tighten. Again, this is an 8 mil. Alright, just a little bit of cleanup now. I'm going to get the car on the ground and take it for a quick test drive, make sure everything feels good, and then we'll conclude. We ended up using about 6.5 liters total here. On a standard drain and fill, you may, just dropping that drain bolt there, you may drop about 4.5 liters. Changing out the pan may make it closer to 5 liters. Dropping the actual valve body and changing out those seals, etc. Bring things up to closer to 6.5 liters of fluid. Alright, so we're all buttoned up down here. Put that cover back on. I'm going to take it for a quick test drive just to make sure everything feels good now. Alright, I've been driving on it for the last 10 minutes or so. Feels nice and smooth. Everything's normal. Actually, it even kind of feels like it's a bit smoother to me, but you know, that could be placebo. So all in all, it was a relatively easy job, and I'd recommend you guys try it, provided you have a torque wrench to be able to torque down the bolts for the Mechatronic unit. That's going to be very important. But all in all, it's a very cold night here in Houston, 25 Fahrenheit. And basically it's a ghost town when it's this cold here. It hasn't been like this in years. You got ice on the ground. It's definitely not the norm here. Bridges are closed, the highway's closed, lights are flashing. It's kind of funny actually. But yeah, that's going to conclude this video. Thanks for watching and good luck. Wow.